What's up guys, it's Aiden, and today we're going to go through how the Weeknd's Blinding Lights was made on FL Studio. This is video 2 out of 4 in the premiere. If you haven't seen the first one, it's designed as Panda. I'll leave a link to it up there. This song went so big and I haven't seen any really super accurate remakes on YouTube, so I'm going to be the first one to give you a super accurate remake of the Weeknd's Blinding Lights, because that's what this channel is about. This channel is about breaking the laws of physics to give you guys the best damn remakes in the game. The song starts off with this preset from Repro 5 that I made myself, and we're just playing the note F over a few octaves. Then we're adding in a second bass preset on Repro 5. And this is the TUC synth keys short, so both of them playing together. Then tying it all together, we have this synth pad. Then right after this, we're going to add in the lead. So good. All right, we have the drums. Really simple. I couldn't find the identical samples. No. And I looked really hard, but Max Martin, the guy who produced this song, probably didn't have them available, for download like at a drum kit. So I found the most similar drum samples I could find. This is the Vengeance EDH1 bass drum 38. Then this is the Vengeance PE1 snare 27. And for the kick, we're adding the DS10 drum shaper offered by XLN Audio. Then for the snare, we're adding the Cymatics Diablo plugin, and they're sponsoring these videos, so I thought, hey, why don't I add them in this video? So this is another drum shaper plugin, but it's really expansive, so we have a bunch of different things to choose from. I added some boost to the sound, as well as some distortion, then some light soft clipping. So that's just making the snare hit a little bit harder. Once again, thanks to Cymatics for sponsoring these videos. You can download this plugin as well as the FLP in the description below, both of them for free. Then finally, DS10 drum shaper just to increase the attack on the transient once again. We have the clap, which we're using the Vengeance EDM1 clap 4, and we're going into the pre-computed effects and taking up the stereo delay to the right. That's going to widen the sound, so without it. Then once you turn it on, really cool, sneaky effect. Then once again on the mixer, DS10 drum shaper, so without it. Then once you turn it on. Then RC20 retro color to add some space reverb. Then finally some fruity compressor. So all the drums together in the song. I don't really want to explain the effects. I'm going to let past Aiden explain that. I'll see you in a second. We also have some sound effects coming in the intro and throughout the entire song. We're using a bunch of Vengeance sounds. As you can see here, we have these Vengeance reverse cymbals, crashes, downlifters. Then let's move into the chorus. We have the lead preset. This is made using 2 different presets. Number 1 is this preset on Repro 5, the TUC synth keys short. And that sounds like this. Then we have this preset from Sylenth 1 called the lead follow, which sounds like this. I modified this to make it a lot wider, so I increased the detune to 3.7 and 3.4, which would normally be too wide, but since we have this other preset in the center of the mix, it sort of brings the whole width down. That way it makes it bearable, so both of them together. Then we have this synth pad progression. I don't want to explain this. Then we have this synth pad coming in, playing these gorgeous chords. During the choruses, the pad opens right up, but at different points throughout the song, the pad will be a bit more closed. As in, the low pass filter will be a bit harsher in these sections. In the chorus, we're introducing a hi-hat loop. Really quiet, you might not notice it until like the end of the chorus. You can just hear it coming in there on the right ear, panning to the right. Then we're using this instrument that you might not have noticed is being played in this song, except for in a few certain points where it comes out more obvious. We're using this ample-based P guitar from Ample Sound, and we're playing the same melody as the synth bass. Then I exported the audio, as you can see here, and that plays with the synth bass. And this comes out more obviously during the verses, this part here. You just hear it there. So on that note, let's move into the verses. So we have the synth bass with a low pass filter. So that's the same bass from here. Then we have this synth melody that I made on Serum. So I made this preset by adding Basic MIDI to both oscillators A and B, taking the one on B up 1 octave. Then we're automating the volume using the channel velocity, which you control inside the piano roll. That's why these notes are a bit quieter. Then inside the effects, we have some compression, some chorus, an EQ, as well as some hyperdimension, reverb, and a filter. So there's a bunch of internal effects on this preset. Then we can move to external effects, and we don't really have that much. We just have this EQ and a compressor, and that's it. So altogether. We have this little perk coming in. It's a BWB Wave 3 Perk 16. It's all coming together. Then coming to the pre-chorus, we have another synth coming in from Silent 1. It's a really nice sound. I got this from a BWB preset bank. It's the Pluck 2 Chains. Oh, speaking of 2 Chains, we have a remake of 4 AM coming next up, so look forward to that. For the external effects, we have some parametric EQ2, some fruity reverb, some RC20 retro color, doing not a lot to it, just taking the tone down a little bit. Then we have a second bass sound coming in, adding more high frequencies to the sound. It is the ARK Rotobuzz in Repro 5. As you can see, we're playing some octaves above. In the very end of the song, we have this synth pad coming in, playing a new melody. If you can tell me what this chord is at the end of the song, I'll be very impressed because I do not know. One thing that Aiden from 3 days ago didn't explain is this vocal sound that comes in. You can find this preset on Omnisphere. I think it might be the identical sample. It sounds really similar to the original song. It's the Pop Female 1 Rs, and we're turning on this solo and glide. That way the preset glides between different notes. Then I added some RC20 retro color on the mixer. Of course, where would I be without RC20 retro color? That's it for the video. Thanks to Cymatics for sponsoring this event. You can check out their plugin in the link in the description, as well as the FLP. I'll see you guys in the next remake, which is a remake that I haven't seen anyone do before. It is of 2 Chainz' 4 AM featuring Travis Scott.
Let's go.